Start over. What's your name?
All right. Hi, I'm Austin. I'm an electrical engineering major, and I'm from Hallettsville High School. Yeah, this was our mascot. We were the cows. Bramers, if you want to be
Don't worry.
exact.
My high school mascot was a Quaker. Don't feel too bad. We were literally the fighting Quakers.
It's cool.
Serious?
An Irish Quaker.
Okay.
Fighting Quaker.
Yeah, you're still wins.
Can't be much worse than that. It took me a while to figure out what that was. So this is where Hallettsville is on the map. It's deep in conservative territory.
Wow.
It's, if you ever had Shiner beer, which is at Giant Eagle, I was so surprised. It's like 15 miles from there. And if you watch The Voice, this guy, I can't remember his name, he's from there. But anyway, so why does this matter? Why is this important information at all? Because my school doesn't give a damn about the separation of church and state, and they are a public school. This is yes.
Zero. Fuck.
So this is our this is an actual photo of our football team. I didn't play sports. And before and after every game, at the varsity level that is, there would always be a prayer on the field, both at the beginning and after, which I believe as long as it's student-led prayer, that's okay. In this case, this does not look student-led. And often I don't think it was. So on that same note, this was our basketball team. They were all really good. My junior and senior year, they went to state. This was our shirt for our basketball team. His blood, our sweat, their tears, and it's the team praying. Like at a public school, this is bad. Now, no one batted an eye at this. It was just completely let go because there was nobody in our community of varying viewpoints. And this was also the slogan for the team: "In your name we pray." So we'll come back to this later. What? So coining the phrase. A lot of people, including myself, I thought that the separation of church and state was mentioned in the Bill of Rights. However, it's not. It's worded a little differently, and the phrase didn't even come to be until 1802. Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter in which he stated that, I'm sticking out saying it, but it boils down to a wall of separation between church and state. So,
Irony, it's
Great Wall.
from China.
Yes. So that wasn't until what? It was in 1802, but that's like 20 years, 10, 20 years after the Bill of Rights was actually written, if I remember my dates right.
I'll find out.
So at the time of the passage of the Bill of Rights, some of the states had their own official state churches. Not cool. And they were like gotten rid of later. But it's like, it's just in clear violation of what was just said. And at any point, if anyone wants to chime in or talk about this. So this impacts education. There's a couple states, Louisiana and Tennessee, where creation is allowed to be taught. Then alternatives to evolution, or well, like states that allow alternatives to evolution, we're on there, Ohio, Texas, along with a handful of other states. And that's where they offer, like they teach you evolution and they're like, hey, here's this other alternative. So the problem with this is that it only offers one alternative to evolution, and there's many. Go ahead.
What's the STEM graduation rate in these states?
Oh, that would have been good information.
It's bad. Okay.
Louisiana's down at the bottom in education, I believe. I know Texas, we were like 44th.
I don't see Alabama on that list.
Ask Dave at work.
But this information is from Slate.com, so don't know. So there may be more states that I don't know about.
It's all right. 11 years. Between
11
the
years?
Tax Bill of Rights and Thomas Jefferson's letter to the Danbury Baptist.
Okay. And the wall between the,
Church and
I
state.
can't remember that stupid quote.
Wall of separation between church and
But yeah, that's where we derived the separation of church and state idea from.
What are some of the alternatives besides creation?
Well, whatever other religions believe to be the creation of, or the origin of life.
is newly appended.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to teach one, you can't just teach one. You have to teach all. Like, it's just not fair. It's,
Should be done.
yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Like, what about all the other religions that aren't Christianity? They're probably
Precisely.
teaching evolution and creationism. But what about what the Hindus believe and the flying spaghetti monster and Buddhists and
Norse gods.
all the other stuff?
Exactly.
You have to teach everything if you're going to teach more than one.
And then there's a map to show the states and where, like green is where it's okay for them to teach creationism. And like you said, each religion, or at least most of them, have an origin for where everything came from. You can't just teach one. That's bias, and it's promoting a religion in a sense. And that is strictly against what Thomas Jefferson was getting at. So you kind of got like problems going on. You've got like the church, you've got like the state, and they're both kind of pushing on public ed on what they should be teaching. So like, you can teach different religions and what they say. There's actually classes that offer that, but you can't promote it. So if you want to teach about religion, that's okay, but you can't promote your religion. You have to teach about all the other ones as well. That's when it's okay. So there are, like, we have separation of church and state, but there are some places that don't. So, a country with deep reverence for God, faith-based government. They define the marriage between man and woman. Homosexuality is illegal. Religious-focused public school, and non-existing environmental laws. Conservative paradise. Where is it?
Saudi Arabia, Iran.
So, like we see a lot of stuff that these days, people that want to change laws and bring God or bring religion back into our politics, and these are things that we have to be concerned about, because different doctrines have different things. So, like, some may outlaw some things, some may outlaw others. But if you apply those rules to society as a whole, where the viewpoints are different, it creates problems. And here's that quote that I keep forgetting. I contemplate with sovereign reverence that doesn't sound like English. That act of the whole American people, which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between the church and state. And then the contrasting view of a country without separation of church and state is that it will be the government's care to maintain honest cooperation between church and state. The struggle against materialistic views and for a real national community is just as much in the interest of our German nation as in that of the welfare of our Christian faith.
But I thought Adolf Hitler was an atheist.
He wasn't a real
He was
Christian.
not.
He wasn't a real Christian.
But how can you?
So you can see where problems can arise. Now, this is an extreme case. Not everyone's going to be that way. I think most people probably would not be that way. However, allowing faith and government to commingle can allow something like this to happen. There is the possibility for it and the potential, and that's dangerous. So, go for it.
So the separation of church and state, in this instance with the Germans, by separating church and state, we protect the religion just as much as we protect our national government and our national institutions.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah, basically. So right here at home, we are fighting this. There's a lot of people that want to try to bring down the wall of separation between church and state. Cuyahoga Falls is an example of that. I guess they're trying to do something little, but it's against what they should be doing.
They hit on the national blogs a couple
Yeah.
weeks back. Everybody was talking about it. So Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, is this little town. Like, I know what it is.
So they've got prayers before their city council meetings. If they want to pray, that's fine. However, the city council meeting isn't the place to do that because it's representing people of the community, and people of the community may not all be of that same faith. In this case, it is a government entity, in a sense, promoting religion, and that's Texas is another example. We have the Ten Commandments monument right next to our state building. And so like that's problematic. I don't know if it was paid for with taxpayer dollars or not. However, the fact that it's on, it was?
Oh, yeah.
That's what brought the uproar.
The fact that it's on government property and it's promoting a religion to masses that may not all follow that same faith, it's very problematic, and it's clearly against the separation. So in response to that, it opens the floodgates. Any religion now can place a monument, if they so choose, at this area, or I guess at any government facility for that matter. Right? But, so as soon as you open the door to one, you have to open the door to all of them, or else you're promoting, and that's bad. So our government is a secular institution. Like, religion is supposed to be separate from it. Our public schools, funded by government money, those are also supposed to be secular institutions. They teach science. They're not there to teach religion or promote religion. Their belief should be that if you want to believe in something, that is perfectly okay. However, government or government-funded things just isn't the place for that. So environmental aspects. There are some people who run for office that have beliefs that pertain to the environment. These aren't direct quotes, but these are things that I've heard people say. The earth won't be here much longer, so who cares what we do to it? That's bad. I personally, if you think that the world's not going to be around for much longer, what if you're wrong? Your children are going to inherit this earth. That's bad.
I've never heard that the earth won't be here much longer, but the person won't be here much longer.
Like the people that
the person's going to die within 100 years minimum.
It's mostly the doomsday people that think that the rapture is going to happen within like the next 15 to 20 years. That they're not concerned with conserving the earth or its resources. Resources were made for us to take advantage of. I've heard people say that. Once again, you're not thinking of your future generation of man.
I actually heard someone, it was I was in the Big Brother Big Sister program, and I was talking to him about us, the United States running out of oil or the world running out of oil, and he said some shit like, well, God put the oil in the ground, so it's never going to run out. And I'm like, how do you respond to something like that, man?
Actually, dinosaurs died here in the oil.
Usually with a baseball.
Dinosaurs died so you could drive.
They died for your sins.
I got something similar.
They died for your Chevy.
How do you respond to someone that says if 2 plus 2 equals 5 is in the Bible, I'd find a way to prove that, and I would believe that. How do you use that? I don't
Maybe some
know
kind
that.
of
That was on the questioning Darwin thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you, what do you do?
You can't. It's just
You
like,
just walk away.
yeah, pretty much.
over.
So it's like, if you're not,
Take away their driver's license.
if you're not concerned about preserving the earth, even if you don't think it's going to be here, it's just, you shouldn't be elected to any kind of office. Whenever the BP oil spill happened, there was a man I talked to in Hallettsville, and I asked what he thought about the cleanup operation going on. He was like, no, there's no need to clean up. And I was like, what about conserving the oceans? He was like, I don't conserve, the earth will just fix itself. Granted, it will if you give it enough time, but we're talking millions of years. It's going to take forever for the ecosystems to recover from disasters like that. So you got to do what you can to preserve it. So where I'm going with this is that, the people that that hold office hold very important positions, especially the higher up they get. Do you want people that don't believe in preserving the earth in any sense to have access to, say, the keys to nukes? Like this, it bothers me to think that so much power could be given to someone that doesn't care about the environmental, or the environment at all, taking care of our planet. So that's another reason why I think that religion should be kept out of politics, government, whatnot, because just if you don't think the Earth's going to be here, that has implications on the rest of us.
I think you should question their leadership when they're praying at these meetings and praying for things to get better, because if you're going to just sit around and talk to yourself and not actually try to solve the issues or whatever, I think that should be taken into consideration when people vote for you.
Yeah. Whether or not you're actually going to take action and
anyone can
try to be
talk
productive
themselves.
in what you're doing rather than just praying and hoping it fixes itself. So a word to those that are in opposition and don't think that religion should be separate. You should view separation of church and state as a good thing. Do you want the state telling you what you can and can't do in your church? They regulate everything, so why couldn't they regulate your church as well? As soon as you commingle them, well, you can influence them, but they can also influence right back. And often those who wish to combine the two are only looking at it from Christianity's point of view, and that it's the only religion that would be sanctioned. And the opposite is true, because in other countries, like in Iran, they've got a different religion that's not Christianity, and that's their state-sanctioned religion. So it just won't work that way. And like I was saying earlier, if you promote one, you can't promote. If you show one or if you give one any kind of space, or if you let them build a monument, you have to let everyone else. If they want to build a monument, then they can too. So once the state aligns itself with the religion, the floodgates open, and any and all religions would be able to take place in government. So really allowing religion and government to commingle would just not work, because there's multiple people of multiple faiths, and as soon as one of them gets in, the other ones are all going to want a piece of the pie, and it's not going to work. It's just not going to be pretty. So really, the separation of church and state protects everyone. It protects your views, your rights to have speech, whatnot, and worship. So it protects the rights of Catholics, Protestants, Muslims, atheists, Hindus, Scientologists, etc. Enter whatever you will. And it protects the church from the state. It doesn't just protect everyone else from whatever that particular church wants to enforce in law, but it protects the church from having to deal with the state and whatever the state might want to enforce upon that church.
What about some incidences with many a priest and some young boys, and that was dealt with within the church instead of the law? What happens when they become cults? So let's say some religions decide to do some sort of sacrifice, either with animals or they decide to take it a step up and move people, and they start doing things more like what a cult would do. How can that be controlled if the state's completely separated from the church?
I think legal action they didn't take legal action at all.
But they even prevented it.
Who prevented?
The church prevented those priests from being. They moved them around.
Yeah.
Are you supposed to put that?
They moved them everywhere around the world.
They were all in a concentrated area, and then they dispersed them.
They completely. As soon as someone started sniffing something weird, they moved them.
Mhm.
If not to another denomination or state, they move them to another country even.
I think there should be legal actions there. If you break, even though you may be you're doing it for religious reasons, or it's happening in a religious setting, I feel like the law should still apply. It sounds like it doesn't, in that
How would they
particular
know
case.
if everything's considered, let's say that someone even sort of signs a waiver to be like sacrificed in front of an entire group of people for a religious purpose.
Well, if you sign the
Even though-
waiver.
You're not allowed to
You might be
do
held
that.
at gunpoint, though.
You're not allowed to do that, though.
Can't you?
So-
That'd be like assisted
They
suicide,
still
you wouldn't
have-
be able to sign yourself over to that.
But see, most of the United States still has problems with assisted suicide.
Yeah.
And
That's
people would
illegal.
probably argue that you're insane. How would people be able to regulate that kind of stuff if they didn't have eyes in the church knowing what's going on?
You had a time first.
Yeah, Chris.
To answer her question, you can charge the like let's say you guys start looking at the religious churches as like something that's different from any other organization. As soon as a organization commits a criminal activity such as either drug trafficking or in the Catholic Church case of child molestation, like a massive scale like they did, you can charge them federally with it's called the RICO law, which is the Racketeering and Corrupt Criminal. It's basically how they took down like a lot of the gangs like in the 90s and then the mafia like in the 90s as well. And they actually charged, I think they tried to use the RICO law on like a diocese out on like the East Coast or something like that, because they because that's one way you can like actually take an organization that large. But
And this type of organizations like this before have been taken down. You're from Texas, you should look up Synanon, which was a church which was classified as a cult that was breaking the law, and the incident that caused them to fall under public scrutiny was they stuck rattlesnakes in someone's mailbox, and retaliation was a lawyer, and the IRS came down on them hard when this was brought to their attention. But for the enforcement of separation of church and state, unfortunately this falls under IRS jurisdiction and state DA jurisdiction. And the IRS has their hands tied with Congress because they're the ones that write the tax code. And Congress really, right now, can't accomplish anything. However, the state DAs for each individual state also fall under the jurisdiction for this. And so really, it comes down to people, concerned citizens having to bring this up to the state DA, and concerned citizens having to gather the evidence or forcing the state DA to force a criminal investigation. And if it's a secular Christian group, if it's a non-secular Christian group, that's not going to happen. So it really comes down to civic responsibility.
Okay.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation frequently fights the fight for people that report it to them. They have an entire legal team, I think, that works on individual cases. And the Secular Student Alliance National will fight for you in schools. They love doing that. They have their own legal team for that. They actually put together a team that goes out in response, like a response team. Yeah. It's a say team. That's awesome. Yeah. And I think that's new this year. So there's support if you know where to reach.
Speaking of the IRS, do we tax them yet?
No.
No.
Tax the churches.
They don't even have to
I-
file
I
their
do-
taxes, so we don't know what they're putting their money towards.
I do think we should start taxing them, though.
I think everybody thinks that.
I think first step is getting them to file their papers.
That's a conversation for a whole other day.
And with a
That's
free
actually a
church on
whole-
every 5
Heard about that, I
feet
think,
in
India's the other day.
Do you have any more?
All right, so just kind of in recap, in public, if you want to pray, if you want to express your beliefs, that's perfectly okay. The freedom of speech protects your right to do that. However, if you're representing a community, or if you're in any kind of secular institution such as government or the school system, no, that's not okay. That is when you've crossed the line and gone over the wall separating church and state. And so whenever something like this does happen, the FFRF is very adamant about preventing things like this or going out of their way to stop things like this. They wrote letters to Cuyahoga Falls, and I'm sure every time something similar to that happens, they have like a legal team, I think, right?
Yeah.
So they make sure that this kind of stuff doesn't go unchecked. And here's another plug for FFRF.
We've had both of their co-presidents come speak to us before. We had Dan Barker, which we loved when he debated, and we had Annie Laura Gaylor recently. So it's kind of cool that we've had both of them. Annie Laura Gaylor is at our conference.
She was?
Yeah.
What time?
She gave
In the evening. She was later.
She gave the women talk.
She was more. Oh, she was morning.
Okay, that's why I missed it. I didn't come until like noon.
She gave her famous meetings. It was good.
So now it's just a discussion on the topic.
Why the picture?
It's cool.
It's a round table.
That's how I envision us.
Oh, okay.
Where's the song?
Which one am I?
Yeah, this.
We're gonna look for holy grails.
I can't tell because they all have hats on, except for the ones with blonde hair. You don't have blonde hair.
So, per the earlier comment about when things that are against, civil law occur within an organization, there's a lot of legal precedent in the United States for the free exercise clause has its limits. If you're doing something that's egregiously against the law, the free exercise clause doesn't cover you, and there's a lot of legal precedent. So you can take that sort of thing to court and win in the United States.
Hopefully win.
I don't have any court cases off the top of my head.
But it doesn't protect animal sacrifice or animal cruelty.
No, it doesn't. There's no precedent for that. There's, and then sometimes it gets weird. Certain practitioners of native religions are allowed to use mescaline and peyote in their religious rituals, but Rastas can't smoke weed.
They can. Snoop Dogg does.
He does.
That doesn't mean he's
I
allowed
think he
to.
legally can. Like he has.
Okay, and he's got a prescription because Rastas aren't allowed in the U.S. to.
Really?
Yeah, it's
I thought they were under that same law.
It's just one of those weird. The precedence covers the rights of the native practitioners and doesn't cover the Rastas. Probably under some specific grounds, insofar as like there was a case involving peyote and a case involving weed that were decided differently. But
There's the Church of the Frog, or whatever that one is.
Church of the Fawns?
No, the frog. There's like a certain frog, the frog that you lick.
Oh, okay.
Because that's illegal as well. But I think they have, it was probably 2 years ago when I read it, but I think they have like legal okay to do it under that clause.
that's pretty cool. And was it in Religulous that he interviewed the 420 church? They meet every week at 4:20 on Sunday and get high and then have a Christian service. They're not allowed to. They're not allowed to do that.
But they do.
And they don't, in their church, actually smoke. They gotta do that on their own time and then come to church high.
That's hilarious. Colorado State.
So,
That monument that went up in Texas that you showed, I think that was the case that I was talking about a while ago, that FFRF took them to court and they were unable to get that removed. However, on the other side of the situation was that they were allowed to put up their own monument.
They put up a bench.
Which, yeah, they put up a bench with a whole bunch of secular quotes and
I like the
really
bench.
strong arguments for why even this bench shouldn't be here.
That doesn't
They
make
counted it
sense
as a
to
loss,
bench.
but it's kind of disappointing that happened. I just wonder which one's going to get vandalized first.
Did they ever make the Satan chair in Oklahoma?
I remember hearing about that.
I don't know.
Let's
Satan, yeah, like this, like the giant statue of Satan and like his
It was-
goat head,
it was a
children all
Satan
around
chair.
him, and people were just like, "Oh,
Look at
atheists are
McDonald's.
Satanists, take them down." We're just like, "No,
It's like designed so you can like sit with him.
yeah." That's sit with my homie G.
Oh, they were crowdfunding the Satan monument.
I can see that getting like a Kickstarter. I would.
They did it on Indiegogo.
Austin, how do you feel about the street preachers that come to our campus now?
Okay, so since last semester, I've been like adamantly against them. I understand that that's like their free speech and that they can do that, but this is a government-funded institution, right? So I guess they allow all of us. Like, if we wanted to go out there and promote atheism, we could.
Which we do.
Well, we're different because we're a student group. They're an outside source that do request permission to come on campus to do that. But I don't know if there's money exchanged between the university and them. I would think there might be a small fund given to the university, but they can't exclude any other religion from coming to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess they're not in the wrong there. However, I think those guys are assholes, and I don't want them here. But that's just my opinion. I can't really act or do anything upon that.
But they make our group look so
Yeah.
great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they did do a favor for us in getting the university to come together to protest them.
See, that's what I love about them. That we just kind of stand there with signs and offer free hugs, and we let the populace start
They're like, little bird.
It's free advertising.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we haven't had this many members in a meeting in how long? Yeah, I was walking
had
through
a
the
block.
CAS
That never
and
happens.
these two girls are behind me. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm a Christian.
I'm
but
still looking up the
these
same
guys are
trash.
crazy. I'm like,
And we had people of all faiths that were on our side.
yeah. I was talking to a Muslim girl named Tess and another girl, Lydia, who's like a Christian, and like a couple other Muslim people. They're just like playing on our side. It's really cool.
It's like that one picture that they have that shows like an atheist and a Christian guy fighting, and then it puts like a Westboro Baptist Church guy between them, and then suddenly they get along and they're like fighting.
That's great.
Was anyone listening to what they were saying? Because I know they said some things about Catholics being evil. Did anyone else hear anything else?
I didn't really get to hear them preach. When we were done discussing with them, they just started singing.
Yeah.
I sang with
Sing along?
We did. Tommy did.
I missed
It
it.
was kind of funny because
I think they were kind of afraid to start preaching too hardcore when our group was still so strong against them.
Yeah,
Did anyone
we
lose their
had
pants
30
this
people.
time?
No, Bob wasn't there. He didn't strip.
I missed it so much. That stinks.
We had like 30-some people. It was pretty great.
Yeah,
That's so
photos.
awesome.
I'm gonna send them in.
Some, like a random person like recording it too. She's like, this is going
I still don't like the Bible thumpers being on campus. So they're passing out the Bibles because the last time they were here, we got several reports from various people, unrelated people to us. They felt like telling us about it. Were interrupted by them being here. They actually physically put the little Bible in their hands and stopped them from walking.
That happened to me like 4 times. I have like 4 of them.
That's
They're
really not okay.
Aggressive.
Yeah.
Debbie.
The guys I talked to were real nice though.
That happened to me. I've been on campus for 2 years now, and that's happened to me like 3 times. And every time it happens, we all just go in like our classes, and there's like a big stack of them. Nobody like takes them, but they'll like, here. I'm like, oh, I already have one, and they're just like, no, take more. I'm like, okay, what?
Because you need more Bibles, right?
Yeah, I'm like,
on. They
okay.
probably need to
Because
stay
one
until
is
they
And you
get
put it in my
one.
purse, and you put
So-
my bag.
The guy that was handing out the Shroud of Turin sheets yesterday was kind of aggressive about it.
Oh, and by the way,
Oh, yeah.
evolution is a
What was
lie.
he handing out?
It was like about the shroud that covered Jesus and about how like the carbon dating said it was from the 1600s, but how that's false. And then at the end of it, it says, "Oh, by the way, evolution's a lie." Well, I watched him before I walked by him, and like people would walk by and he'd like chase after and be like, "Here," like you can't say no to it. He's just like he gets up in your face, it's like, "Take it, just take it." Like he doesn't grab your hands or anything. But he was just like chasing everybody down. He did it to me. I was carrying a bunch of stuff with Kaylee and Morgan. Do you remember that guy? The guy that was handing out those sheets about the shroud?
Oh, yeah.
Like we were carrying stuff, and he like runs up to us and he's like, "Here, take these."
Desperation makes people crazy.
I've heard of other secular SSA groups on other campuses would do a Bible trade-in program.
Trade in your Bible for porn.
Well, that's been heard. Yeah, for porn, traded it for porn.
for literature.
It was called Smut for Smut.
Or I think you can trade in your Bible for one of the secular books. And honestly, if we don't start using our library, that might be a really fun event to grow. I don't know. Do you think we could get permission to hand out porn on campus?
I don't think so.
I mean, we're all most
No, because
of
there's
us are
high
the age
school
of 18.
students that do
Yeah.
like post-secondary and
Well,
Yeah.
I got
early college
permission for
stuff.
a sex toy vendor to be at our conference.
They never showed up.
It didn't show up because the university, hesitated, and I didn't get back to her soon enough to let her know that I explicitly have permission.
We could
So
totally,
she
So
will be at
next year.
SSC too.
Yes.
we could totally see about like the local section.
When's that?
If you want to advertise.
We are still trying to secure a venue, Rob.
Okay.
It should be like the third week
That's
of
how you keep it
October,
sexy.
like it was
Oh,
this year.
I want to ask
Keep
you
it
back
sexy.
questions about this boundary.
Yeah, hopefully. That's all I'm gonna be running.
I want to ask some questions about this.
In October?
Super, super.
In Ohio?
In
The
Ohio?
mass production of them is just so hilarious to me.
Oh, by the
They
way,
give out the
Like
my
little,
teacher invited
we
me.
could just like give out little doctor dogs to us.
Come see
Here.
Your teacher invited you to speak her.
Yeah,
pass out like
yeah.
printed out sheets of
My
quotes
Zoom
from
is
Hitch.
She's not a
I can't wait to start watching Hitch today. I didn't watch it beforehand. People warned me that it would be bad before Ask an Atheist.
Oh, that's right.
Like you're gonna be
Like,
violently
she's a
atheist after
fitness
watching
instructor. She teaches classes.
I like that
So-
people that talk versus today were able to have
Yeah,
like
and they're thinking about
civil conversation.
doing
Yeah.
Akron and
That was
opening a
nice.
shop in Akron. He said, I'll be in there so fast.
It was interesting seeing my friend Rob, not this Rob, Rob that's not that Rob.
Rob, that's not that Rob.
It was interesting seeing him like lose and like he was the bigger guy with the curly reddish kind of hair.
The earrings?
Yeah.
No, I don't think I was there for that one.
He's the guy I go to for tutoring. Really smart guy. He'll teach you about anything, but it was kind of interesting seeing him like stutter and trip over his own.
Can you teach me about evolution?
Yeah,
And the DNA code?
He's all about science. He just tries to make it fit. All he's doing is he does an okay job of making it work, but he does the same thing that I did, and I ended up not.
You start with the answer and then create evidence to go with it. That's how it works.
That's how you do it.
Hey Rob, we still throwing elections next week?
Yep.
You want to speak on that?
Yeah, really quick, guys, before we go into the complete open discussion. As most of you know, we only have 2 meetings left this semester.
I just started.
So yeah, just 2 more meetings this semester. Next Thursday is going to be election, so if you're interested in running for anything, I'm not going to go through and tell you what all the officer positions are right now.
Just
but
guess.
Yeah, if you're interested in running for something and want specifics, just ask one of the current officers. And the week afterwards, it's going to be our spring end of the semester party. Woo! Yeah, I mean, go back to conversing. Bye, Rob.
You want me to turn it off?
Yeah.
Probably just add out.
Thanks for watching. See y'all next time.